the end of this year, heading into the spring, be able to reach out to some other conferences and upgrade our facility to a point where people think that it is a great place to meet, but now it's only great, it's going to be the safest place for you to come to meet. Including little things like mics and maybe some more temporary walling and some of that stuff to help split some stuff up. So that's where we're at. I would invite people this weekend. Like I said, we have got that rodeo this weekend. It's not a Farm City rodeo, but it still should be a pretty good contest. And it won't be clowns and all that stuff you use for the rodeo, but it's going to be the best of the Cowboys here in the Pacific Northwest. We have to watch, we'll be watching our numbers, because still outdoor, we're still in phase 2. Outdoor numbers are capped at 250. Kind of taking that we're 250 behind the chutes and 250 in front of the chutes, because contestants alone may be going to probably be 100, maybe 100 plus. But it'd be a great opportunity if the weather's like it was on Sunday. It'd be a great opportunity for people to come out. I know we have some vendors coming out. We're going to have some food out there. There's no cost of admission to get in. So it'll be a great opportunity for people just to get out and stretch their legs and support some Cowboys in the area and the Pacific Northwest. If you have any questions, I'd gladly take those at this time.
Yeah. So Al, can you give us a couple of comments? Number one, at some point, the council would probably like to see some financial updates, and what sort of impact, the COVID situation has made on the event center this year. I guess the one positive position is, we're the county and the city, we were able to do this, and our business communities and the donors able to do this, and there's no debt. And so we don't have a big mortgage payment that we're making on that facility. And so we're able to maybe, hold off the storm a little bit longer than some other venues that have some capital debt that they're still trying to carry with no revenue coming in. Where are you at on the Champions program and what's that look like?
Okay, Champions program, good question. They have run into a challenge with their license. I just actually got a text here at about 5:30 that they will be in the building for something. I think it's training with their staff tomorrow for 3 to 5. And their final step for their licensed person will be the next day from 11 to 2. And they're hoping to be open by October 1st. We were expecting them to be open when school opened. We've been set up and ready for them since schools start open. Champions has been there and doing that. But at that time, remember when I was supposed to open, that was the time of the fires. And ground to a halt in their license. I don't know exactly what happened with their license, but anyways, they just are finally in the final stage of getting licensed. So that will be, hopefully, licensing goes good tomorrow. The next day, they'll be planning on opening on October 1st. I know right now for them to start, they're going to start, I think they're going to try to start with 60 to 80 kids, is where they're looking at kind of targeting at the beginning. Once they get some of that on that, they're hoping to be able to expand beyond that. The other part of that, your comment was we're going to have this meeting next week. Actually, have a meeting Wednesday, Corey and Joe, and we're going to look at doing some forecasts for the next 6 months to see exactly what we're going to have, what we're going to hold. I'm going to be optimistic and say we're going to have something, but that something is, I have no idea what that something's going to be. I have a calendar in front of me right now that at one time was pretty full, that's looking pretty empty right now. We've been able to fill in with some, like Wednesday, we have Les Schwab coming in to do a training on Wednesday and Thursday. 14 one day, 20 the next. But the challenge always is people when they bring EOTech, they like to do the great room, and when you do the great room, you're looking at 300 people plus. And when your cap is 250, not that we stand at the door and count, but nobody even wants their team say with masks and all some of the stuff that happens. I get it, I understand it. But we're going to continue to push and see if we can get those. I actually had another conversation with another group today that's looking to come here in June. 250 was her, she thinks she'll be around 250. And so we're going to get them under contract. We're going to move forward like their number's going to be 250. And she says, what happens if we go 250? Over 250, I said, we'll put up tents. We'll figure out a way to make it work to try and get them in here and try and do that. We have a couple other things that we're trying to get in early spring. I'm concerned about, we always do, most of you know, we do the booster event that's been held here the last couple of years. And that event is 400 or 500 people. I don't know how we can do that in phase 2. I just don't know what the answer to that's going to be. But come that time of year, everything could be changed. I mean, we went from phase 2 to stay at home in a matter of days. So who knows what's going to happen when we get to that time? We just cross our fingers and hope and visit with those people and those other people that we've had traditionally, gun club, and those guys and nonprofits we do in the beginning of the year, and try and work with them and see what we can do to still make those events happen, because those are vital parts of the community. So we know that, so we're going to do the best to make those events happen.
Yeah, I think that's sometimes lost on people when we talk about venues. Not only is the venue struggling, but there's a lot of people that use those venues as a hosting site for their fundraising events, like the Butchers Club, the Ed Foundation, the gun clubs, all those sort of things. They're all doing nothing.
Yeah, we lost youth rodeo, college rodeo, a lot of those things that we lost. I mean, this is their major fundraiser for the year. Luckily, they didn't have a whole lot else. I think a lot of them, because everything shut down, they didn't spend anything this year. I'm not so sure they'll be in that same place next year.
Well, I appreciate you and VenueWorks for trying to be as creative as possible within the parameters that we're supposed to use from the governor, and so trying to find ways to at least produce some sort of revenue that helps to offset some of those costs.
Well, and with this last grant earlier, I think the last time I reported, we had just gotten PPP grant. So that was for $53,000 back in, I think it was March or May, or somewhere back there. So we managed to secure $260,000 of additional money, which helped keep our staff on, which has allowed us to maybe do a little bit better than, we generally write our contracts, including the staff. Well, now we've been able to write some of that off into some of the experience, and so it helps the bottom line a little bit, not like we would like to see it, but hopefully, I think the bright side of it is we've had a lot of people come to the site that have never come here before. This weekend, we're going to see people at this rodeo that have never been to the site before. So we come, treat them right, and hopefully they'll come back again and help us grow the facility even bigger.
Well, it's my understanding that Columbia River Circle is the largest circuit rodeo in the Northwest, and having the finals here would be quite an honor.
It is. I tell people all the time, we do the fair rodeo that second week in June. It's hot in Hades. I mean, it's ridiculously hot here in August. If you want to do an event at EOTech, this is the time of year to do it. Right now out there, I mean, Sunday is perfect. Sun was out, it's beautiful. This could be a really nice event for us that really would tap on really nice things at the fair and the rodeo. It's a couple months later. I'm hoping, like I said, they still have another year contract in Yakima. After they get out of that contract, the long-term goal for us would be to try and get them locked in, and then if we can get them locked in, build a fall festival around that rodeo as well. So there's some long-term goals that we're trying to reach, and I think it's closer and closer to reality every day. We'll just see how that all falls apart. Or falls together. Let's hope it doesn't fall apart.
Fall together.
Everything can fall apart. I can help us get punched in the stomach every time I think we're getting ahead, and then we kind of got to go someplace else.
Councilors, do you have any other questions or comments?
I would just like to compliment you on coming up with some real new types of events that you can have there. Uses for that facility that no one would have ever thought of.
It's really a nice facility, and part of the beauty behind the facility is its flexibility. We're not locked into saying we're just a rodeo ground, or we're just this, or we're just that. There's a lot of different things we can do. If people come and they ask us, build it, they will come. So we try to build it the best we can, and we've been successful with some things and more successful with others, and we learn from every one of those experiences. So we're plugging along. We're glad to be there. They start on Saturday and Sunday. They start slack at 9, and then the rodeo perk starts at 1. I think there's 7 vendors. I don't know what they are. Probably Western attire, furniture. I don't know what the furniture lady. There'll be some food there for people to purchase. My goal tomorrow is to go to stand and start blocking out 60 different apartment stands to make sure people kind of keep their business. That's going to be the big goal for the weekend. We're not going to be over 250, but if we do, we've got to be prepared to, shut the gate down and try and stay with it down. I really think people are going to come and go. I think we're going to stay with that 250 number really nice. We didn't do a whole lot of advertising for it for that specific purpose, but it should be a good event to come and see. And, you just want to get your kids out for a day, and everybody's ready to get out and do something different.
Okay. Yes, David?
How, if any way, are you letting people know that events are happening at Biotech? And are those events on your website currently, like the rodeo?
You know, that's always the challenge. For us, we always have most of our events this summer are participant driven. And by participant driven, that means there's no gate, our gates are always open. People are welcome to come and go and sit in the stands. We hesitate advertising because we've been under such strict guidelines. You know, for example, we had the barrel race this weekend, and I know in the open class there were 200 entrants in the open class. I know that for a fact. There were 200 entrants. For every horse that comes, statistically, there's 3 people with it. So we were already probably pushing capacity at that. So we really haven't pushed the public awareness. Where in a normal year, absolutely, we'd be putting that out, trying to get people up and out there. But I think we just have to be careful. I mean, as people come into our facility now, if you come into the facility, we stop you at the gate, you take your name, your phone number, your address, your email, take all your information, you take your temperature. Before you even get to the gate, you get to the back side to be able to see stuff. This weekend, we'll probably do that and get to the back side and also to the front side because we anticipate rodeos are more spectator versus our barrel races and some of our team ropings. So we'll probably do that on the front and the back side. So yeah, we have been a little leery about advertising those. In most years, we have that all out there, public information, but we kind of kept it kind of close to the vest.
Yeah, I just think we just need to do our due diligence and be as cautious as possible because, you know, we have been a hotbed and we've had some significant decline in numbers over the course of the last month or so. It's been nice to be able to have our businesses back open again. Wouldn't want to see that trend reverse. Any other questions, comments? No?
I just say, great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Al. Thanks for the report. Those of you that are using the microphone tonight, if you don't mind, Al, kind of cleaning that space off after you leave so that it's more sanitary for the next person. Thank you. You don't know. Okay, so now we're at the first opportunity in our agenda for citizen input. So if there are constituents here this evening that would like to speak to the council and items that are not currently on our agenda, we will have an opportunity to talk to those later. But if there are items you would like to talk to the council about, please come up to the microphone up front, introduce yourself by name and address, direct your comments to me, and try to limit them to less than 5 minutes. Welcome.
Good afternoon, this is Virginia. I am Virginia Garcia, 435 East Sunset Drive, Hermiston, Oregon. I'm here to try to get the opportunity to thank our Hermiston Police Department for the wonderful job they have done. We support our police department as the Hermiston Cultural Awareness Club, and as a member of the community, we support and we'll do what we can to work with the police department because we know that they have always been very cordial to us, to all the community. We have no complaints. And Jason, Mr. Astle has done, Edmondson, sorry, have done a very good job at maintaining a good relationship with the community. And I think it's only fair that with all that is going on throughout other bigger cities, we're just grateful and thankful for the Hermiston Police Department and the emergency personnel that are out there helping the community. Thank you.
Well, Virginia, thank you for your comments. Very nice and kind. We appreciate you as well and your leadership, and all of the protest events that have gone on have been peaceful, and they've worked really well with the police department to try and make sure that those events are going off safely and appropriately. And so I'm sure Chief Edmiston will pass those nice, kind words along to the staff as well. Welcome, Jackie.
Well, I was going to do the same thing. And Virginia beat me to it.
I was at the last protest for this year, and Officer Sandoval and I don't know who the other two officer that was with her, I don't know the name, but I was one of the people who had one of the blowhorns, and we was in front of McDonald's, and I guess we were pretty loud. The customers couldn't get the orders, you know, the thing.
You don't want to interrupt Big Mac orders.
I'm surprised nobody came to beat me up for that Big Mac. But anyway, so they came and they asked us if we could just move down some, you know. And they were very cordial. And everything was just, you know, this came was nice and asked us. And so I was let different people know. A couple people, of course, you know, they always have those 2 or 3. Well, how do you know? I said, well, those of us with the line, let's move down. Let's not make it about an automobile. They came here, they were respectful to us. We should be respectful as well. We had one gentleman that, young people, I don't understand young people today. When I was raised, they respected people, you know, and especially the elders. And so they're a little bit different, some of them. But anyway, just want to say thank you, and it was really nice. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie. And thank you for your leadership in working with your groups too when you come and make the presentation of the protests in the city. Appreciate your civility and the conversation that you're having with the community. Others that would like to speak? Okay. We're now on to the consent agenda. There are items A through E. Are any of those wanting to be pulled by the council? No? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve consent agenda items A through E? Second. So I didn't hear where the...
So moved.
Okay. Second by Jackie. Okay. So then moved by Council Primer, second by Council Myers, that we approve consent agenda items A through E. Any public comment on the consent agenda items?
Where's the agendas?
They're right in front of it. Yeah. There's a desk right when you come in there on the left. I think there's plenty of them out there. Okay. Any public comment on those? Okay, seeing none, get a roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. The one thing I'd make a special comment on there is there are plenty of committee vacancies currently. 13, I believe, Councilor Harden pointed out this evening. And so we are always looking for applicants to serve on those city committees. If you would like to be more involved in your community and do some public service, we'd appreciate you volunteering for those. Public hearings. Supplemental budget number 1, fiscal year 2021, resolution number 2166 below. Are there any declarations of conflict of interest in council? Hearing guidelines will now be presented by city staff.
City Council is holding a public hearing regarding supplemental budget number 1 for fiscal year 2021. The City Council will take public testimony on this issue and make a decision at this meeting. The hearing process will begin with a staff report by Finance Director Mark Krosik. Following presentation of the staff report, the City Council will take public testimony. Testimony will be received by supporters of the proposal first, followed by neutral testimony, and then opponents of the proposal will testify. The Council requests that all people wishing to testify approach the microphone and give their name and mailing address before testifying. People wishing to testify should limit testimony to not more than 5 minutes unless a longer period is provided by the City Council. Written testimony will be accepted from all parties. After everyone wishing to testify has had an opportunity to speak, the City Council will close the public hearing and enter deliberations. Once the public hearing is closed, no further testimony will be received. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. The hearing is now open. City staff will now present its report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You have before you tonight resolution.
Microphone.
It's on. I didn't realize I had to be that close. I'm sorry. You have resolution 2166 that will encompass 3 areas of supplemental appropriations in the budget. One is to accept the $540,000 from CARES Act funding provided by the state to the city. One will be with regards to appropriation authority to spend the insurance claim money left over from the damage to City Hall. And then the final one, because we went into the City Hall construction program pretty much before we were able to include it in the budget, we now have to get budget authority to take the proceeds of our recent bond sale and build the City Hall and put it in the budget. Total of the resolution is $10,299,890. As I said, one aspect of it's in the general fund, the $159,890 on the insurance claim is in the reserve fund, and then we have created a City Hall construction fund to track all dollars spent on the construction and preparation for the new City Hall. I'd be glad to stand for any questions.
Okay, we're going to open it up to public testimony first. So anybody wishing to speak is asked to come up to the microphone up front, introduce yourself by name and mailing address, limit your testimony to not more than 5 minutes. And we're going to start with the proponents, so people who wish to speak in favor of the supplemental budget. Seeing none, we'll go to neutral parties. Anybody not opposed or in favor of, but just neutral? And any opponents who wish to speak? Okay. The supplemental budget hearing is now closed. Is there any further council discussion? You guys have any questions? Okay. So then can I get a motion to approve the staff report?
Second.
Been moved by Councilor Gutierrez, seconded by Councilor Harden, that we accept supplemental budget number 1, fiscal year 2021 staff report. Roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Now moving on to resolution number 2166, to supplemental fiscal year 2021 budget. Do we need any further discussion about this, Mr. Smith?
Only if there are questions.
Any questions come up? Okay. Can I get a motion to approve resolution 2166 and lay it on record?
So moved. Second.
Then moved by Councilor, I'm going to give this one to Councilor Barone, and second by Councilor Harden, that we approve resolution number 2166. Any public comment? Seeing none, roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Who speaks loudest often gets ignored. Ordinance number 2310, Local Improvement District, the LAE number 322, South Hermiston Industrial Park. Mayor requests first reading of the ordinance be read by title only. Calls for roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Mr. Luisi.
First reading of ordinance number, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ordinance number 2310, an ordinance creating local improvement district number 322, describing improvement, setting boundary, providing for payment by a combination of an EDA grant, contributions by the city and county, and benefited property. Securing such payment by lien against the benefited property, calling for construction, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Ms. Luisi. Mr. Smith, did I get out of order there? Should we have talked about this now? We'll talk about it after we moved it forward.
No, I think, I mean, you can have done all this and then
talk
before
about
the
it.
vote.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure that I hadn't got out of order. Okay, the mayor requests that the order be put on for final adoption at this meeting as second reading by title only. Calls for roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Luisi.
The second and final reading of ordinance number 2310 as follows. An ordinance creating local improvement district number 322, describing improvement, setting boundary, providing for payment by a combination of an EDA grant, contributions by the city and county, and benefited property. Securing such payment by lien against the benefited property, calling for construction, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Now would this be an appropriate time to remind us what we're talking about here and make sure the community's
Yeah, Mr. Morgan.
where we're at? Okay. Mr. Morgan.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I noticed the council will go through a little bit of the history on this project because it has been such a long time since we've brought this up. I want to make sure that everyone in the audience, everyone who's watching online, has an opportunity to understand what we're talking about this evening. So what this local improvement district number 322 would do is to install some substantial improvements in what we're referring to as the South Hermiston Industrial Park. So one question is why are industrial lands important? And it's important to keep in mind the difference between employment generated from things like retail trade versus primary industrial employers. And so there's a substantially larger impact from industrial employers in those spin-off or reduced jobs created versus things like retail trade. So you can see down there towards the bottom, for every employee that's hired doing something like working in a retail operation, maybe for every 5 of those, you might add 1 additional employee. Non-durable goods manufacturing is more like a 5 times employment multiplier. So from an local economic perspective, it's important to make sure that we have an adequate supply of industrial lands. Also, just from a financial standpoint for the taxpayers of the city, it's important to make sure that we have a diverse amount of land available across residential, commercial, as well as industrial lands. Industrial lands do pay a relatively high ratio of property taxes to the size of the property. And you derive the property taxes not just from the facility itself, but also the property of suppliers might also be located here locally of the supply chain, but then also from the properties of the homes and businesses of the employees and the suppliers that work with that industrial development. So for lay of the land on what we're looking at with regard to industrial lands here in the city, this is a map of the city, and those red boxes generally outline where the existing industrial lands are in the community. And so this is that was from the zoning map. This is an aerial picture of the same area there. If we zoom in a little bit closer, this is the area around West Elm and North First Place, generally the area along there by Unit Electric Cooperative, Marlette Homes, Home Depot, that area. That area that's in yellow is zoned industrial, but it's largely full up. There's not a lot of available vacant properties in there. There are some vacant properties, but they're what would be considered brownfields in the sense that they had previously been developed, and now they've fallen into disrepair as they've transitioned into different industries. So those tend to be more difficult to land employment operations in there. Additionally, this is another small node of industrial land over on the east side of the city. This is generally along Elm Avenue behind the Walmart store itself. That yellow box that has the eye on it, that's right along Elm Avenue. And one of the challenges with developing those, even though they are nice, undeveloped, vacant lots, they're still quite a ways away from water and sewer supply, nearly a mile in some cases. Some of the other industrial land we have is up in the Port Drive area. That's around the Staff Hanson Government Center and DMCC area. You can see it has a dual zoning of commercial or industrial. That property around there really doesn't lend itself too well for light industrial uses now that all of those other uses are located in there. One thing that we know about light industrial uses is they don't like to make enemies of their neighbors, and so they don't want to have a light industrial type of a use right next to what is really turned into a nice business park there around Port Drive. And then also the airport carries an industrial zoning designation on the airport. But one of the challenges with our land that we have here at the airport is that it's limited by some challenging geometry as well as a lot of hurdles with getting things developed there because you have to get things approved by the Federal Aviation Administration. And so finally, really the largest area that we have for available industrial land in the city is down in our furthest south portion of the city. There on the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the Walmart Distribution Center. Pioneer Seed up in the upper left-hand corner. That whole area, through a lot of work by the city and private development over the past 20, 30 years. There is a substantial amount of utilities located in that area. And then also, it's difficult to see from the scale, but most of those parcels down there are quite large, several hundred acres, and they're vacant and ready to receive development. And so the industrial lands development strategy of the city for the past several decades has been to focus on marketing the largest parcels to those primary industrial developments, and generally just kind of let the smaller light industrial parcels kind of manage themselves and build out according to the market demands because there have been available parcels there. The city has had a long-standing agreement with the Cook family for marketing those really large parcels down there along Peaville Road for the purposes of economic development. And so that was a lot of the city's focus for a long time. The large parcels, the understanding was to just simply continue farming and allow the city to market those to large-scale industrial employers, and then they'd be willing to subdivide those properties to benefit the local economy when a large-scale industrial client came along looking for land. So over time, those smaller acreage lots that are inside of that red box there, that's Kelly Boulevard and Campbell Boulevard, and a vacant right-of-way for Southeast 10th Street. Over time, those smaller acreage lots have filled up. We've seen development take place in there where we'll see, it's not like a residential subdivision where all of a sudden 100 homes will go up over the course of 2 or 3 years. Those types of needs fill in a lot more slowly, but we do still see 1 or 2 lots develop every 2 or 3 or 4 years. And so over time, that leads to us having a relatively lack of supply of those smaller acreage light industrial lots in that area. So this is an aerial picture of the Kelly and Campbell area just 26 years ago. In 1994, you can see Highway 395, and you can see the Hermiston Foods there. May have been in the process of getting built, or may have just been built in that image. But you can see quite a lot of vacant land there around that area. So this is today, or I think this aerial is from 2018. And so one of the things that we experienced and really helped kind of trigger this focus in looking at those smaller acreage industrial lots is 2018 was really a watershed year for industrial land transactions in that area. You can see the approximately 40-acre parcel that's there along Penny and Ninth sold to a light industrial client, and we anticipate they'll begin construction on a large development here in 2021. Additionally, the Port of Umatilla had that smaller, approximately 8-acre parcel there along Kelly. Had some pretty substantial interest for the past couple of years, and I believe they now have a new sale pending on that property. And so you can see that just continues to eat up the land that's available for some of those smaller acreage light industrial parcels in that area. Additionally, since 2018, there was interest in an additional 100-acre parcel there south of Penny Avenue, and as of June this year, that property has since been sold and closed. So now we've seen the sale of 140 acres of property with pending developments, and then the additional 8 acres that has a sale pending in that area. So that begs the question for us, if we're going to continue having a relatively diverse local light industrial base to be able to accommodate the needs of really the large scale industrial operations that come in. They need to have suppliers that can do things and supply them with the things that they need. Where do we go next? So this is kind of our new industrial land strategy, where we're targeting the northern red box there, which is approximately 40 acres owned by the Port of Umatilla. That is where I think we would like to see a similar development pattern to what we've already seen there along Kelly Boulevard and Campbell Boulevard, with some of those smaller 1 to 5, possibly up to 10-acre parcels parcelized out of that property. There off of the end of Penny and Ninth is approximately 30-acre parcel that lends itself well to hopefully seeing some of the more 10 to 20-acre size interests. And then we still have agreements with the new owners of the property down along Peaville Road that is still several hundred acres. And I think that's where we would still try to locate those operations that need more than 20 acres up to 100 acres at a time. So this is just a real rough sketch of what something like that could look like. With the Port of Utility is 40 acres, they're along the north, parcelizing down into approximately 8 to 1.5 acre parcels, a 5 acre parcel remaining, and 2 10-acre parcels there along the top. So how do we get there? This is what the land looks like as it is now. When we started realizing that we needed to, if we hoped to see that development pattern, would need to be some pretty substantial infrastructure investments in that area, we took a step back and looked at really that entire area and what potential improvements would need to go in there. These included things like punching Penny Avenue all the way out to 395 between Ranch Home and the former Hermiston Food site, and installing a traffic signal at that location to be able to drain that area of truck traffic. But then also paving the remainder of Campbell Drive, and then also paving that completely unimproved stretch of Southeast 10th between 395 and Penny Avenue, and then also installing a new sub-street into the Port of Utilities property to facilitate that smaller parcelization, and then also installing water and sewer utilities in that Southeast 10th Street for providing water and sewer service to those properties. So when we started looking at those as being kind of the whole universe of potential options, all of those options totaled out to about $8 million. And so we knew from the start that we were never going to come in and build all of those improvements all at one time. This is something that's going to take a phased approach over a number of years. But those are, I think, some of the top priorities for seeing future development down that area. So then we wanted to focus in on the area there around Kelly, or Campbell, and Southeast 10th. And so we invited all the property owners in that area to several workshops back in the spring of 2019 to get their thoughts on what they saw as the most important things to go into developing that area. As I said, it became pretty evident pretty quickly that extending Penny out to 385 and installing a traffic signal just really made it way too expensive to really contemplate doing those. But there was pretty substantial interest in the Campbell Drive development and Southeast 10th development. So originally, when we were looking at this as the scope for development, the city's existing street standards requires full width paving of the right-of-way, but then also installing curb, gutter, and sidewalks. If we were to do that and install the water and sewer mains, the total project cost was estimated to be about $4.2 million. I think the feedback we received from the property owners, and I think just common sense and stopping and looking at that area, we really realized that pedestrian traffic in that area was not likely to be very heavy. And additionally, if this is an industrial area, we didn't know about inviting pedestrians to come be walking down that area. And so what the council did last summer in June of 2019 was to adopt a special street standard only for the South Hermiston industrial area, where we shrunk down the right-of-way width, prevented on-street parking, and removed the sidewalk. Ultimately, we feel like that's going to be a safer street by not inviting pedestrians into that area. Really, the big benefit of that is it reduced the total project cost by about 25% versus what it would have been otherwise if we had followed the city's normal street standard in that area. One of the things that we did consider briefly in our workshops with property owners down there was some discussion about trying to reduce the cost of the project by simply cul-de-sacking the southern end of Campbell Drive and not extending the paving all the way down to Penny Avenue, because a number of the properties that are there in front onto Kelly, they already have access onto Kelly. They don't necessarily need access back onto Campbell. But it was determined pretty quickly that there really wouldn't be much cost savings because of the size of the cul-de-sac. It would require a pretty substantial land acquisition of the surrounding properties there to create the bulk to accommodate truck traffic in that area. And then also we heard from several of the property owners in there that have industrial operations that they really would like to see Campbell Drive extended down to Penny to basically allow for circular truck traffic in that area, so that if a semi-truck is coming to deliver a product or haul product away, they can come in either on Campbell or on Kelly, and just loop in there, drop off, make their pickups, and then head back out to the 85 without having to turn around either on the property or at some sort of cul-de-sac at the end of the street. So that's how we ended up at the scope of the project that we did. But of course, $3 million was still the ultimate cost of what we were looking at, which is still a pretty sizable investment. So we were lucky in the sense that we were deemed eligible to apply for $1.5 million in Federal Economic Development Administration grant funding, and so we began pursuing that with our federal partners. But there's really no such thing as free money out there, and so we would still be required to come up with a 50% local match, which still comes out to $1.5 million is what we would have to come up with. So we began trying to determine where exactly that local match funding would come from, and so the city of Hermiston had about $250,000 left over in a former economic development effort that we were keeping in a reserve, and so the Hermiston taxpayers will be contributing about $250,000 towards that to offset the costs to the property owners in that area. Also, the Utah County taxpayers, through the county commissioners, agreed to contribute $50,000 to offset the cost of the property owners. And so that left about a little over $1 million still to be raised to meet that obligation. And so now we've gotten the cost to the property owners down to about $1 million from where it was up to about $4.2 million. We've reduced the cost down by about 75%. And so that's where it began to make sense that we could possibly look at creating a local improvement district. And a local improvement district is a financing method for financing public improvements where properties that directly benefit or are immediately adjacent to improvements are then expected to contribute some direct cost to the development of those improvements. And so depending on whether it's an adjoining property owner that initiates the process or the city in this case, the city goes out and estimates the cost for all the improvements and then also estimates the cost for each of the benefited properties, in this instance based on their frontage onto the improvements. And so then we notify all of the properties in the local improvement district area as we've defined it, notify all of those properties what their share of the costs would be, hold a public hearing, and then if more than 60% of the properties in the LID oppose formation, then it would have to stop. Anything less than that, then it could proceed forward. And so once it reaches that stage, then the city goes out, acquires construction financing, and constructs the improvements. And then once it's been constructed and all the final costs are accounted for, then the city seeks reimbursement from those properties that are located in and benefit from those improvements by levying a fee on top of those properties to reimburse the city for those costs. So the local improvement district process that we went through in May of 2019, we had two workshops with property owners in that area. In July of 2019, the City Council accepted the LID engineering report, which included the final cost estimates overall and per individual property. And official notices were mailed to all the properties in that vicinity. It's important to keep in mind that in this LID there are 20 total parcels. The Port of Umatilla owns 2 of those parcels, and so the Port of Umatilla's share as a result of the engineering report came out to covering about $700,000 of that remaining approximately $1.2 million. So the remaining 18 parcels would be the ones that would be paying about $500,000 for those improvements to their property. So in August of 2019, we held the public hearing on the LID. As I mentioned, there were 20 total lots in the LID. There's a specific term that's used in our code for an official opposition to the development, which is called a remonstrance. And so in that process, we did receive 4 official remonstrances or opposition to the project. One being from ODOT. They communicated to us that they were supportive of the project and the idea, but they did not like the concept of being included in a local improvement district because they didn't want to have the source of their funds tied up too strictly. They did not mind paying for it, but they felt that they needed to protect legal options, and so they still remonstrated against the project. We also received one from Thomas Investments LLC and two from K2 Investments LLC. Important to make a note, though, that two of those were deemed to be invalid because two of those parcels had existing non-remonstrance agreements in place with the city. And so what that is those were parcels that a number of years ago had developed, they were constructed on, and if the city had enforced its development standards, they would have been required to pave a portion of Campbell Boulevard or Campbell Drive, but in being accommodating to the developments at the time, the city entered into an agreement with those property owners to say that they would not have to install those improvements, but that they would not remonstrate against a potential local improvement district if one were to be formed. And so that's why out of the 20 total LID lots, 4 remonstrances are received, but we believe that only 2 of them were valid. Also important to note, during the public hearing portion in August, we did receive 4 comments of neutral testimony, 1 from CJ Family Investments LLC and 3 from John Patterson in the form of 3 parcels that he owns. It's a little difficult to tell what was opposition testimony or neutral testimony, but these 4 were made during the neutral testimony portion of the hearing. So in terms of official remonstrances, that were received, we received 2 valid remonstrances, 2 invalid remonstrances, and no official remonstrance from 16 of the parcels, which results in a 10% remonstrance rate, which does allow the council to form the LID. At the time in August, the hearing was closed, but the council decided to delay the decision on a continuing basis every 90 days. The last thing that the council wanted to do was to form an LID that creates an obligation on the properties without having the Economic Development Administration grant funding. And so the city submitted the EDA grant award now that we knew we could make the local match, and then we waited and waited and waited. And so finally, September of this year, EDA finally notified us that we were awarded $1.46 million for the project. So tonight's decision before you is a request to approve ordinance number 2310, which would create LID 322. The city will then go out and construct the improvements. We anticipate having those complete by late 2021 and levying the assessments towards the end of 2021, early 2022. And at that point, the property owners that would be having those assessments levied on them, they will have the option to repay those levies over the course of 10 years. And it's the intention of the city to obtain affordable construction financing and then simply pass those costs directly through to the property owners without marking up any overhead costs to the property owners. So with that, it was a long in-depth report. I stand for any questions.
Thank you, Mrs. Morgan. The project has been working on close to 2 years. And so it's good to get back up to speed, and hopefully the counselor is up to speed with all of this as well. And counselors, do you have any questions, Mr. Morgan?
I just have one about the cul-de-sac. Is it in or out?
So the cul-de-sac is out.
Out.
Mr. Brown?
Question about the 18 parcels. Are those, is the remaining 500,000 going to be distributed equally amongst those 18 parcels, or is there a formula, or is it based on property value? I guess
So the distribution is based entirely on the amount that they benefit from the property based on frontage sheet, and so it's a little bit difficult to see in this image that's a little bit washed out. But so you can see white represents paving of a street, blue represents construction of a water line, and green represents construction of a sewer line. So for example, the parcel that's in the very bottom right-hand corner what we do is we take the entire amount of linear feet of construction of the street and then divide that by the total amount of linear feet of frontage. And so in the bottom right-hand corner, because there's no installation of water or sewer fronting their property, they will only pay per linear foot for just the street improvements. So that's kind of the formula for how those costs get allocated.
Any other questions from the council? Yes.
Hypothetically, would the lands in this area be eligible for the temporary emergency shelter zoning? Would they be within an area of exclusion / would these areas be zoned?
That's probably a question better answered by a city planner, but I believe that is the case, yes.
We approved for industrial zone, right? So this is considered industrial. Private property.
Can't be totally separate. Is that correct? It has to be hooked up with the commercial part of it. It can't be a separate, all by itself on one lot, right?
That's correct. It has to be, a temporary emergency shelter, according to the ordinance you adopted, has to be done on a parcel that already has another industrial use happening.
It can't be a standalone.
It can't be the only use on the property.
Don't want to distract us, okay? Two issues. Don't want to go down that pathway tonight. Any other questions on ordinance number 2310, the local improvement district? Yes. So I'll take a motion that ordinance number 2310 is adopted and become effective immediately after adoption by the city council. Is that right? Okay. Okay. Second. Then moved by Councilor Myers and seconded by Councilor McCarthy, I believe, that the council adopts ordinance number 2310 be adopted and become effective immediately after adoption by the city council. Any public comment?
Which address do I use? Or whatever we're talking?
Your home address.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
John Patterson, 77130, Joyce Lee Echo. What were you talking about, the emergency camp? The emergency shelter? Enlighten me.
Yeah, so we had a conversation at the city council around zoning changes to allow emergency shelters for homeless. And one of the conversations is around industrial properties. So we've identified industrial property as a location for a potential site for a homeless shelter. And then we also have some other planning restrictions around that have minimized the amount of space within the city to host those kind of sites or homeless shelters. Different conversation from this one, so that's why I was hopefully
Not to develop property to put them on.
yeah, no,
Behind
there's not any property that's been identified in that area.
Okay.
And the only way that it can be developed is by another property allowing it to be used for that, and it has to get a conditional use permit from the planning commission.
It would still have to come back in front of the planning commission and then in front of the city to get any sort of adoption.
Are the local landowners notified?
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. So I'm back to the cost here. Mark, is this still an open checkbook, is what I want to know. I mean, do we have any set costs? How much will the landowners that are paying $500,000 for $600,000 be involved in the financial knowledge of what's going on in this project?
You want to answer that?
Yes, so part of the process here is that we commissioned Danish Perry and Associates last spring to develop detailed cost estimates for the development, and so their estimates, and we all know that they're estimates, and so the way that we have it set up is that we'll go out, develop the project, and then once the project is complete, as per what has been outlined in the exact scope that's been presented, that's what will be built. So I guess to the question of the blank checkbook, there won't be any scope increases, there won't be any additions in additional paving, any of those types of things that the property owners would be expected to be covering. But if costs do come in higher than what was estimated, then that would be expected to be recouped by the property owners. However, I will say that I don't anticipate that to be astronomically high or potentially low. So Anderson Perry did include a pretty healthy contingency in their budget estimate, which was questioned pretty heavily by the Federal Economic Development Administration folks. They felt that the contingency line item in the budget was a little bit too cushy or a little bit too soft there. So I think they felt that Anderson Perry was maybe hedging a little bit high on the cost estimate side. And so I'm hopeful that since we did have a relatively high contingency cost there, combined with the fact that this project is going into what is really otherwise virgin soil, it's a pretty straightforward project. We really don't foresee running into many challenges or problems. And so that would really, that in combination with inflation over the course of 2 years would probably be the source of any potential cost overrun over what was originally estimated. But again, I don't think it stands to be potentially too high. Also, another component being, since we're in the pandemic-related recession, it's causing really interesting and unanticipated issues in supply chains, those types of things. So we may see some pretty competitive bids from some of the folks that bid on the project, but there may be some components that may be a little bit difficult to obtain. So it'll be interesting to see what the bids come in as. But again, it won't change any of the scope through the process. It would only be subject to some of those kind of the biggest components that would be having an impact on the cost.
Mark, this is just like we do any other bidding project within the city. It has to go out for public notice, and people in the community could bid on it potentially, but there will be a public process by which all this information will be shared with the community.
Yeah, it'll be competitively bid, and it has to follow the scope that was identified in the project.
Yep.
So will we be apprised of what's going on financially? Like Moog is $95,000. That seems a lot high for Granite to drive their stuff across town. I'm not talking dump trucks come back. Well, I'm Moog. Boom, you're there. Boom, you're home. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, so
If it comes in lower, are we going to pay less?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, that's well, good. Okay, that's good. I think you guys already approved it, so not much bad else to say about it. The only thing that really bothers me, and I don't want the cost to go up. Because it doesn't benefit me, and I already have a road, I've maintained it myself through winter for 15 years. On Campbell, and Craig can attest to that, so but there's no dips, and there's no approaches into anyone else's property. There's no sewer drops. So we can have that. And Byron, how much does it cost to hook up to the water and sewer that we're paying to run by our place for the Port of Moreland?
For the Port of Moreland?
Well, or the city, Port of Moreland.
For the Port of Umatilla, I guess is what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
So I think if...
But how much is it to...
If you choose,
I don't have our connection fees off the top of my head for water and sewer, but yes, to have a connection, it does cost additional when something develops.
so you have to choose to hook up.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But, what do you call that plan? I can't remember.
Hook up fees.
There's SDCs, and then there's sewer hookup, water hookup.
But you guys don't know how much it costs for it.
We do, yep. And when a company comes to us and they want to hook up, they pay the same rate, whether it's in the Hermiston Industrial Project or any other project within the city. So, but I don't know that that's a part of this project.
No, Dave, what I'm getting at is, I'm paying this much to get water and sewer and half of a road behind me.
Right.
Now, how much does it cost me to hook up to use it?
Yeah.
That's what I'm getting at.
It'd be a lot less.
I mean, we could, Mark, do you know it off the top of your head?
Well, I was just gonna say, it's
I'm
not...
guessing, Mark.
Well, it would be in the neighborhood of probably $3,000 or $4,000. It depends on the size of the meter for the water. that's being installed. So that's where there's a range on, that's why it's not as easy. But also on those system development charges, it's probably important to keep in mind, one of the things that those go toward is, not necessarily just paying for the water or sewer main in front of the property, but it's to offset some of those off-site components. So the capacity that you use in the recycled water treatment plant for the treatment process, that type of capacity, or a water right or a well expansion on the water side of things. So that's more what the system development charges are
Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out how much I had to get out of this property that he would break even. Because it's valued once, you said, I gained equity in this property, Jackie, at the last meeting. I remember that distinctly. One property is valued at 22 on your own paper, and one's valued at 11. So that's 33, and it's gonna cost me 44 for this road. It's a lot of equity there. So, see what I'm saying? See what I'm getting at here?
I do.
So I'm trying to figure out how much. I guess I'll just call you tomorrow and ask you, and I'm talking for a commercial business, not a rendering plant or something, So,
Yeah, feel free to reach out. Thanks, Sean.
okay, all right, thanks.
Appreciate it. Are there others that would like to speak to you? Yeah, come on. Yeah, thanks for bringing that police officer.
Oh, hey, one more thing. I asked these questions. Does anybody remember Buzz Brizzo?
Yes?
Mhm. He sat right there on that stage. He said, Neotech won't cost the city 1 penny. Yeah, he did. He had all the investors all lined up for it. So I just, kind of want
Thanks, John.
Craig Evans, CJ Family Investments. A1 Industrial, 5 Campbell Drive, an address, I guess. So, John asked a lot of the questions that I was going to ask as well. And from what I'm understanding, just want to make sure this is clear, but last time when we had this, and I did the totals of what it was going to cost me for my one lot, because I'm going to pay for the road on Campbell and 10th Street, which will have the water and the sewer. Will it have power down it too?
Not at this point. That's something that we'll be working with Hermiston Energy Services on.
What good will a street be without power down it?
Yeah, so the electric utilities, typically, they will wait for an actual customer to come in, and then they'll determine what the level of power that goes down there.
Okay. The last time when I did my calculations, it was around $60,000 for me to do both sides. And maybe I messed up on my calculations, but that was, now you're saying it's about half, which, okay, that's a little more reasonable. Because I could do it for cheaper myself, but I know you're not giving exact figures, but that's kind of what you're saying, or?
Yeah, so we included in the staff report, there is a listing of exactly what the cost estimate is for each of the parcels, and so I don't have it in front of me, so I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Okay.
But it is in tonight's notes.
It is the agenda.
If you went to the agenda on the city website, it's listed.
Oh, the cost part?
Yeah, your cost estimate.
Okay. Broken down though, just total cost estimates, or broken down per footage? Sorry.
Yeah, it's broken down the exact estimate per each parcel based on their frontage.
Okay, sorry, I missed that. But it was on the thing you guys sent us?
It was, so we sent a mailer to all the property owners in that area and advised them that this process was going to be occurring. So actually, I think when we sent that out, we referred you to the old council agenda because we didn't have the staff report done yet. But if you go to the current council agenda for tonight's meeting, it's included in that one.
So,
Well, we called on that, my wife and I called on that, and they said if there wasn't a current agenda for us to look up online, so,
It would have been posted on Wednesday.
yeah, well, that's why we did.
Yeah.
Wednesday.
It comes out about 5 days before our city council meeting, so it's on there now.
Okay.
it's 41,385 is for the CJ Family Investments LLC.
That still sounds a little high to me for that as well. I paid $31,000 for that lot. Now all of a sudden, it would be $75,000. And of course, they're getting some value, et cetera, for it. And what about the power? I'm interested in building on that lot. And I'm interested in building on my other lot on So if I want to find out how much it costs to bring power down there, if I'm the only one who wants power, I'm going to be the one paying for the power for everyone down that street. Is that how that works too?
Yeah, so that's really the beauty of doing a local improvement district on the water and sewer side of things, is because it helps to spread those costs out.
It's in the middle of my lots on Campbell.
Oh, is
So
it?
you don't have to run, you don't have to run the high line down your lot.
Oh, that's right.
Those,
Okay.
yeah, those are all things that we could also figure out with Hermiston and service at a different time when we're ready to develop it.
And then what on the funds for all this? And before you talked about a fee or whatever for this. How does that work? How do I mean, or are you going to be asking? You're not asking for 42,000 or whatever it was.
No, in the report tonight, I think Mr. Morgan alluded to there's a 10-year payoff, and so you'll be assessed a fee.
Yeah, so you'll have the opportunity once we get through the process, we know all of the costs that are a final accounting of it, and we levy that, then each of the property owners will have the option to either pay off their obligation in a lump sum or avail themselves of the financing that the city will make available, which would include interest, so we'll go out and obtain the financing from hopefully a local bank to allow us to do that, and then we'll pass through whatever those costs are directly to the property owners. So there will not be any overhead, like in the sense of the city managing and those types of things. But if we get assessed 2% interest or whatever it is that we're able to obtain, that would just be passed through directly to the properties.
Okay. So, yeah, when would we have to write the check for it?
So that would be determined on whether you choose, 10-year payoff or a one lump sum type of a scenario. So we haven't developed the exact logistics for that process yet.
After the street's put in? Or?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, and approximately when do you plan on starting it?
So we're hoping to be in construction early next spring, and we hope to have it paved before paving season ends next fall. So we hope to have it, hope to be paving in September next year.
Okay. All right. Well, I was hoping you'd be faster than that. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? So we have a motion and a second. Move on to roll call.
Yes.
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 Yes. Motion passes unanimously. August 2020 financial report.
Yes. So, Mr. K.
Yes, I'm waiting. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. Make sure this is on. If I could work it. I know it's on.
It's moving on here.
I'm not sure what's happening here. Should I just come up there and do it? Okay. Technology. Thank you all for bearing with me. Okay. So, finance report. I'm hitting those up buttons and down buttons. Which buttons do I use here? Right here. There we go. Hermiston Urban Renewal Authority, we are 2 months into the year. I always put this slide up so the council can see what's going on with it. 2 months into the year for the urban renewal area district is not really meaningful because he hasn't really done anything so far this year in the district. So, but I want to make sure you see that every month. General fund resources, our actual revenue for August was $488,000, which is $294,000 below projected. We have made adjustments in the out months, September to June. When we did the overhead cost allocation, we did not take into account when we took the $600,000 of HES in lieu of taxes. That's a $50,000 a month hit on the outlying months, the next 11 months of the year. So we had to lower the revenue projected by $50,000 per month in those months. So it was overstated last month. That correction has been made, and now we're looking at the current projection. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. Expenses for general fund were $1,069,000, which is $227,000 below projected. That's due to the concerted effort of all the general fund departments, only spending on mission critical issues. Total expense savings to date, almost $600,000 in the first 2 months. And that's the way I feel like the bulk of our effort is going to be in avoiding discretionary spending through this time of COVID. I'm not sure that we can have anything that will boost revenues, just minimize revenue loss, but certainly we can contain expenditures. And every couple of weeks, department heads get together. I keep mentioning to them, stay focused on mission critical, not discretionary expenditures. I would tell you on the left here, and it doesn't show up on this slide very well at all because of the granularity, but certain departments, we are now projecting on a straight line 1/12 of the annual expenditure per month. As a result of our overhead cost allocation, our historical averages aren't valid because we moved bodies. So we just straight line those departments with their expenses. On the right, you can't see the blue highlighted. We had some notable savings from departments that I'd like to mention. One was court, has saved a lot of money at this point, almost $60,000. We have the police department is doing a yeoman's job in helping control our expenditures. You can see that he's got a variance favorable of $135,000 change. Those are the ways we're going to be able to try to manage ourselves through the revenue loss that we had. You can also see the pool is $188,000. Well, we didn't have the pool open for most of August. So naturally, we did not spend that money. These are all benefits on the expenditure side. The revenue side is still going to be an issue for us going forward. This is the part that I have to tell you we're working on. How can I meaningful revise our revenue and expense projections for the rest of the fiscal year? You can see right now our minimum reserve is $1,867,000. We ended the month with $2,213,000. With the appropriation tonight of the $540 in CARES funding, we will not have a problem with the minimum reserve in September, but there will be a question mark about October. So I'm going to be working on how I can meaningfully revise both the revenue and expenditures. And I'm basically shooting in the dark because I don't know how soon revenues can be replaced. I don't know if we can continue to have the level of savings on expenses that we have had to date. So I would ask the council to understand that situation, and we're working very hard to try to make sure that we can accommodate the minimum reserve policy. But I'm also giving you notice, October might be an issue for us as far as below the minimum reserve. With the utility street funds report, I don't see anything significant these 2 months into the year. You've heard the discussion about the street fund and loss of revenue with the gas tax. You've seen that on the resource side. But you can also see it's almost made up dollar for dollar by not spending money on expenditure savings. Water and sewer are doing very well, both on the revenue side as well as on the expenditure containment as far as what we forecast. HES, and you will see HES in the red for a while because we took the in lieu of taxes all at one time. Well, not all of it, but 600,000 of it at one time. That will play itself out over the year. It will continue to come down, but that's why we see the variance there, and regional water is doing fine as well. Construction projects, capital projects, I think you're all very well aware of what we've been doing, especially with the conversation we had this night at the infrastructure committee meeting. It's worth noting that the cathodic protection on well number 6 is virtually complete. We just haven't paid the last bill, and that will be off the page by the time we get September results. Other than that, I wanted to make one notice that, as I mentioned last month, we will now do a separate quarterly report to the council on the investment portfolio. Not take your time up every month, but I am required by our policy to report quarterly. I will have that as a separate report for September results at the October 26th City Council meeting. And I should mention too that the results of our bond issue, the $9,006,000 and some change we had, will be in the LGIP very shortly. And with that, I'd be glad to stand for any questions.
How did the bond sale go?
I'm sorry?
How did the bond sale go?
The bond sale went really well. I mean, we figured we'd be lucky if we could get a net cost, total interest cost, somewhere in the 2.25% to 2.4%. Total interest cost came in 1.8%.
And just on the refinancing portion of the loan that we did with the water and sewer debt, we're saving in the initial year over $130,000.
In the current year.
Excellent. Other questions? Okay. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Yep. I need a motion to accept the August financial report as presented.
Second.
Moved by Councilor Harden, second by Councilor McCarthy, that we approve the August 2020 financial report. Any public comment? Seeing none, roll call.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Ms. Smith, City Hall design update.
So with technology, it looks like I'm gonna be over here. But first I want to start out with, let's see if the red, at least that part works. So this is the main level in our current level of design. It is pretty much the same. You have the finance and customer service area here with the court, kind of sharing part of that, kind of splitting the front counter, court staff and the judge in the back here. You have the council chambers / court room with the executive session / jury room here. So it's pretty much the same. Just to orient, I'm sorry, I should have done this first. You have Gladys here and 2nd Street on this side. So here's the second level. And underneath here would be the council chambers. And on this side would be administrative staff area with a conference room. Here is the building and planning departments on this side. And what we've tried to do is to have some expansion space planned in this, because we know we're not building another city hall for a long time. So making sure that we do that, but in a cost-efficient manner. And then this is the lowest level, the basement. And this that's blue and green here is the portion that is designed for the county, a sharing of the health department, as well as the drug and alcohol treatment portion of the county. So The rest of these spaces, this big space here right now is open for lease. We may be talking to some different companies that might be interested in that. And then these other are archive and different mechanical and then the bathroom spaces. So that's an update. The design is pretty much the same. There's a few changes since the last time you've seen as far as where walls are and different things, but it is likely not to change a lot from now forward. But what we really wanted to get some feedback on is the next piece, and I'm sorry, this is just the current version of the site plan. So this is the new parking area. You have the alley down here, and this is a window well that brings light into the basement loop. This may be getting tweaked and looked at again before we get to the final design. So here's looking at the kind of the presentation corner of the building from Gladys and Second. And what I'm going to show you tonight are some different ideas. The architects are at the point where they're showing us a few ideas. What do we want the outside to look like, and as well as trying to consider what would be the most expensive way to design it. So this look is not brick, though it looks very brick. It is a red CMU block. It's a little less expensive than doing brick. And so they've also included in here, if you look, there's some barn wood on the sides. That was very unpopular with the staff, but wanted to get the council's feedback on that as well. Here's the, this would be the Gladys, well, this would be the second Street side, and with the alley. And then looking at it from the Gladys side. And although you're not seeing that there's a ramp over here, there's going to be an accessible entrance into that side of the building. It's just, this is what the architect, he called it the pretty pictures. It doesn't necessarily match up right now with the design. They're just trying to show us what it could look like. And so this is the side kind of facing the parking lot. And this side, this picture shows more of a gradual landscape area going up to the parking area, taking out some of the parking spaces that you saw on the site plan. We're going to be kind of talking about that, tweaking that a little bit over the next little while. And then there's the last one to kind of catch a view of their vision for the front of the library to try to match up the two buildings a little bit, but not have them identical. And then a kind of a drone shot down on the couple of views there. And let's see. Okay, so here's some of the different options that they're talking about, the different materials that could be put on the outside. So here's option one, more of a brick all the way around with just a little bit of a metal material on the front, and then on this back side. This one is more of a stucco with just a little bit of brick on the portion that would be closest to the Union Club building. And then this one is a little bit more of a mix. This front is a little bit, you can't really tell from this distance, but it's a little bit more matching up with what they have thought about as far as the library goes. They have a couple of interesting ideas here for this front entryway canopy, trying to kind of harken to our agricultural roots. So this one, just more of a standard canopy, but if you see here, you'll see circles, basically. They took a look at an aerial of our area and just saw the different shades of green, and so they thought you could put some glass up there with those circles that would show the different shadows on the ground as the sun went by. And then, to kind of carry the agricultural idea forward a little further, these are supposed to be kind of modeled after what a irrigation system would look like on a circle. And so, again, trying to harken back to that. So right now, we're at 50% design from the architects, and then they're getting input from all the different engineering, mechanical, electrical, all of that. So we're getting to the point where lots of changes on the inside aren't going to work, because then you have to move everything around. On the outside, they're also getting ready to want to finalize and help us get to that. Their latest cost estimate still puts us on track to stay under budget, along even with the costs of the library project. So things are going well in that way. We're looking, the schedule has been pushed a little bit. We're looking to probably go out to bid in November, early November. No, I'm sorry. Go out to bid in early October, looking for the bids to come back in early November, mid-November. Hopefully to be under construction end of the year, first part of the year. And end of this year, first part of next year, yes. So I guess, unless there's any questions about any of the other details, I'd like to get some feedback on what the design's looking like. Mr. Harden.
Question, there is not a drive-through, is that correct?
There is not a drive-through. We will, we are planning for a drop box. Let me go back. So here's the site plan. We're planning for looking at a drop box right around in this area on the alley side. So they could come in the alley and then go out the parking lot. That's also about the area where we would locate the county voting box.
Mr. Smith, I know that there was some concern expressed earlier when we had the concept of joining courts with us. Security and safety, I mean, you look at all those features to make sure that the staff is appropriately protected and has access or exit options, and also to protect the community in that format as well.
Yes, I think we've done a pretty good job on that. Let me go back to that. So here's the main floor. The court front counter will be slightly modified from what it will be for the regular reception area, so that they can be a little bit more secure. All of this counter, there'll be glass that can be slid open and closed to help give some extra protection. The staff will have an exit out this stairwell that is not accessible to the public. There's a door here. Basically, the public will be limited to staying here, and there's there'll be an electronic access system. We haven't decided to find whether it's key fobs or cards or however, but it will be there's some security concerns addressed all through there.
So all the staff spaces will be key carded, the public won't have access.
Correct.
The question you mentioned about leasing space in the basement to other companies, I think you referred to maybe other government agencies, trying to keep this as much government-oriented building as possible.
We have. We've had some preliminary discussions with Anderson Ferry because they do a lot of work with us, and so potentially they might be interested in that space in the basement. But other than that, we would be looking, you know, to any other agencies or anybody who might be interested in the space.
The county's portion, is that household lease? Or is that theirs, I guess?
No, we don't have a final lease, but the agreement that the council approved includes some lease rates in there that would be put into a lease when we get to that point.
I guess I'm asking that question. Have we had conversations with the county regarding their input on how they want the downstairs basement to look like?
Absolutely, that was their, I mean, we had their staff in and talked to the architects and they commented and we made changes, yes, so they're been very involved.
So how will the building be identified as City Hall? I see nothing on here as far as, are you gonna, you know, put your built-in sign or something that's got running information or?
Good question, we don't have,
Okay.
they haven't told me how they envision signing,
Yeah, because
signage.
you see no sign here, so that's like.
I'd like to see something on the wall, you know, something nice on the outside wall, and then maybe a sign, electronic sign that we could use and advertise events.
I know those aren't cheap, so.
I think I agree with staff, I did not like the barn look.
Absolutely not.
Just my personal opinion, I probably would choose number 3. And I also thought I liked the integration of the circles and the circle pivots as part of the architectural framework of the front entryway. I think that adds a nice, unique character to our community. But I personally like the option.
Does it keep up the light?
No bar.
Yeah, it does keep out the rain. It's a full covered glass, but it'll have the different shades of green and so forth coming down.
Mr. Carter?
Just looking along the alley side of the building, am I seeing in the initial design a back door entrance or exit, and but I'm looking with what looks like a stairwell? And is
Yes.
that only?
Yeah, that would be staff only exit.
There's also access to the county property to that entrance as well.
It would be, right now, we have an envision still only staff. County staff could go in there.
So if they're going to the county, they've got to come into the front door like everybody else is going to
Go
have to.
down. And that's part of the security that we want to keep everybody coming in and staying away. Yep. Yeah.
What about the difference in the durability of the materials being used? You said one is stucco or stucco-like, and then the other one is light brick.
It's a block, CMU block. I think both of those would be comparable from a how long they last standpoint. Stucco really does well in a hot, warm environment, so the summer wouldn't beat it up too badly here. And the block would also do well, so.
Yeah, I guess it was just more adding on to the previous statement. I was wondering more about the consideration of whether the county or not had input, just because of, I guess, more looking at the windows and privacy when it comes to drug and alcohol clients, and if that's if there's gonna be anything like that, because I see that there is windows in the basement portion, but I guess I was more so wondering if there is gonna be that confidentiality or that privacy, especially when clients have their one-on-one meetings with counsel.
Yeah, we'll be able to design the windows in such a way that it can provide privacy, either with window coverings or with the color to the windows.
I think the design is beautiful. I think it's going to be something that the community can really appreciate and be proud of, and something that will have some longevity. Hopefully, at least another 50 years. Who knows? But I think it's done a great job. You guys have done a great job. Any other comments?
Got one down
Yeah.
I remember conversations back when we were still in the earlier stages of design about questions allowing parking permissions and acquisition of the land and building. Have we had an update on that?
Yeah, thank you. That was something I wanted to update. Yeah, we have a sales agreement with the owner of the land building, and we did just extend our closing date until November 1st, but we've got most of the details worked out. I think we will close and take ownership of the property by the end of October.
And the plan of that facility is demolition.
That's correct.
So that'll be part of the, I would imagine, the construction, when it goes out to bid, there's gonna be a demolition phase that will all go at the same time at City Hall. There's nothing left at City Hall that we're stating, is that accurate?
That's correct. And I did mention that we are going to try to do a sale, like a yard sale of the pieces that we've had in City Hall that we're not going to use. And so we're also going to offer up, if anybody's interested in taking out the cabinetry, any of those things that are in existing City Hall. But no, at the end of the day, when we start coming up out of the ground, everything will be gone, land building and City Hall building.
Yes.
Do we want to have the option to vote? Microphone. Option 1, option 2, option 3?
So, Mr. Gutierrez asked about the option. Are we asking this evening to vote on it, 1, 2, or 3? What are you wanting from us?
Well, I need some consensus about what you like, what you don't like. I don't know. I mean, we can just, the challenge with this is there's a million variations we can do.
Yeah.
So if you like this idea, we can kind of go down that road and finalize it. Or if you don't like any of them, then I guess we go back to the drawing board.
Lily, you want to just do a tally, and we'll just ask. Jackie, you got a preference?
Yeah, I like to go with last.
Which one is that? 1, 2, or 3?
On the top, the middle one.
The middle one.
The middle one,
Okay,
2.
Option 2. How about you? No.
You have the option
1, all right.
1.
Okay, 1,
2.
2.
2,
3.
3,
Option 3.
3.
Hey, I like you guys.
It sounds like staff gets to decide.
Right, yeah, this is pretty much a point of here. I think there's 2, 2, and 3. So yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah.
No, I think all the concepts I could be proud of. I think they're all beautiful other than the environment, but you know, the rest of it looks amazing.
Yeah, I'm really pleased with what they've come up with. I think it's going to
It'd be a great time to in downtown as well, and you know, if you can match it with the library.
Yeah.
Yeah, as long as you got the same character of the downtown. You know, it's kind of interesting having a conversation all over again about the City Hall. And we having conversations with community members about the purposes of being in downtown. And I think it's a great addition to downtown, and it really is going to bring it back up to life. So I think reiterating the purposes of being in downtown is crucial.
Right, I think this makes a big statement that the city cares about downtown, and we want to try to help it as much as we can. So. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. So committee reports, do we have any committee reports this evening? We have a public infrastructure committee meeting this evening. Either of you two want to talk about it? We talked a lot about our current public infrastructure committee status as far as our 5-year projections. We're coming up on every couple of years having to change those and add to them over time. We look at cost projections as well as revenue projections. Water seems to be doing well, wastewater is doing well, streets are a little underfunded, as you've heard this evening, just due to the COVID and lack of transportation. And so we'll be down in revenues for streets, and so we're trying to address those. Mr. Morgan's going to come back with some ideas and concepts around how we reach those shortfalls and we didn't expand the streets budget because of that consequence as well. So we're bringing that back to the Public Infrastructure Committee some more this year and out in front of the City Council in January, I believe, consideration. Does that sound pretty accurate? Sounds pretty good.
Yeah.
How about other Public Infrastructure Committee reports?
Larry Building Park, we're not having Parks and Rec meetings right now.
We're not having no Hispanic advisory or geotech, but I'd love some entities to see if we can restart going back to those community meetings, at least in a safe way, if that's possible.
Mr. Smith, is this space available for committee?
Actually, that was something I was going to report in my report, is that we're going to move towards bringing those committees back active. So we'll give the staff to get those meetings back on the calendar.
And the conversation around geotech and the advisory committee, where are we at on that? That meeting's supposed to start here next week,
Yeah, I think it seemed like the conversation was wanting to maybe be something that kind of was discussed in the goal setting, larger context, but we could continue forward with the master planning process with the geotech committee and try to get some of that finalized before we kind of decide if we're going to go a different direction with the committee. But we may need to wait until November to get that meeting organized.
Any other committee reports? Mayor's report. Just to give a little tickler here, we won an award. I made an acceptance speech for it last week. You guys, it's not public yet, but it'll come out here in a couple weeks for your good leadership. And so, kind of excited to recognize you guys and our community recognized in the process as well. So that was kind of fun to do that acceptance for you guys. I got nothing else. Council.
I love my city, so
Oh, how did it go? Yeah, good attendance?
and there was probably about 300 for the service on Sunday also. So, of course, it's
Out in the park?
At the park, yes, that's fine. There was good social distancing.
Good.
So anyhow, but yeah, I think it went well. It was, some people had some conflicts because it came out at a different time than what we're used to. So I think that we're going to schedule ours at a different time from our organization to contribute. I think.
Yeah, sorry, I missed it. Found out late. There was some late notice on it. And so, unfortunately, I wasn't able to participate, but I do appreciate those folks that participated in the I Love My City event. Did they do any cleanup or any of those sort of projects?
Yeah, I know they did the railroad tracks big time. Okay. Probably all the way through town, if I remember.
You know,
Yeah, I knew that they were going to focus on kind of that central area, the highway and the railroad right away. I did see a group doing car washes at the Safeway at the Hermiston Plaza.
Great. Well, thank you for the volunteers and community members that participated in that. I love that too. Anything else, Council? Yes, Mr. Rowe?
One thing's for sure, thank you for the constant email trainings. I'm definitely afraid to open up an email from I am afraid of opening up any of the tests, but for good reason. It's really good to have that refresher training every now and then, just to be vigilant on those emails. So thank you for that. I did want to bring up something else, especially regarding our last council meeting, and it's more kind of a question to the council and a question to city manager as well. When we look at those circles at the end of the day, I guess I left council a little disappointed. Disappointed for many reasons. Part of it, I wish there was more testimony behind it from all parties. But I would like to see if city staff, or I guess what council would think if we were to see the radii instead of 1,000 feet just for parks and schools to 500 feet and to see how that looks like. I guess I want to see what council thinks and if that's something that they'd like to entertain.
So, yeah, I was lost when you just said that. So you were talking about the homeless shelter conversation.
Yes.
Right? Okay,
Yes.
so you were talking about the council's approval of the homeless shelter in the industrial zone and restricted to 1,000 feet.
Yes.
Within schools. Okay. So your comment, your question to the council would be, would they be willing to consider 500 feet? And is that even an option?
Sure, you adopted an ordinance, you can adopt an amendment to that ordinance.
I guess primarily I'm just trying to see how it looks like and the feasibility behind it and see what council thinks when they see those radii. And I don't want to make a motion to say 500 feet right away. I'd like for the council to consider the information.
But the process would be for that to go back to the planning commission to discuss that and then make a recommendation and come forward again.
Are there any legal restrictions if we had a certain distance different than 1,000? Because I think originally 1,000 came up because that's what we required of like alcohol and tobacco shops and that sort of stuff.
Not from a process standpoint. Basically, when we go through the hearings and everything, and we got to go back through noticing, but when you're making something less restrictive, it doesn't trigger the same requirements that, say, going from 1,000 feet to 1,500 feet would have a different set of processes than going to a 500 foot. That's actually a little bit less restrictive.
So, I mean, I think it's something you seem to feel passionate about. Is that something you could put together, Clint, working with Councilor Barone, and what a map would look like?
Oh, yeah.
At 500-foot radius versus 1,000? You have some interest in that?
Most definitely.
And maybe could he bring back as a...
Well, we could bring it back as an informational item, and then you could decide if you wanted to ask the planning commission to reconsider.
I love that. I guess more or less when I left the hearing, I know that the subjects are separate, right? We're talking about zoning, right, and then emergency shelter is separate. But I guess for me, it'd be one thing for us to not have, a temporary emergency shelter in terms of funding when it originally came up, but to completely shut it out, I guess that didn't sit well with me. And I'd like to see how it would look like for 500 feet.
And maybe you can model some other numbers, maybe 750, 800, there's probably some other numbers that would make it maybe more reasonable to fit within the city. More
Yeah, we can look at a few options and bring those back and we can look at it.
Do you have anything else?
That's it. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I'd just like to comment that the Chamber of Commerce is hosting a candidates forum for both the city council seats for the at-large positions. I don't know if all 5 candidates are in attendance. They haven't given me the information yet, because you have until, I think, tomorrow to reply if you'll be in attendance, as well as the commissioner position as well. So that'll be Tuesday here at 6 p.m.
Tuesday.
Next weekend.
Not tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay.
The 6th.
I'm sorry, 6 p.m.
Yeah, at 6 p.m.
Yes.
Okay. And it's at Hermiston, or the...
Here at the community center.
So if you are a member of the public and you'd like to listen to the candidates forum and the 5 candidates that we have up for the 4 seats, that'll be next Tuesday, 6 o'clock here at the community center, as well as the 2 commissioners that are running for, is it just 2 commissioners, right?
Correct.
For the Umatilla County position.
And the school district will be streaming it if you're unable to attend.
Anything else?
Oh, I would just like to comment, I love the improvement on the lights in here since the last time you were here.
Yeah.
It looks much nicer.
Yeah, and I was supposed to mention that this evening. We do have new, I'm guessing they're LED lights,
Yes.
replace the old fluorescent. And they are motion sensitive, so that's why you see sections that are dark.
Yeah, and the reason that we will be programming them so that they won't do that all the time, but they just didn't, the programming done. So there's one that came back up.
So yeah, that's a nice feature too about the LED lights, they're significantly more programmable. more efficient. Somebody said earlier, saves 80% cost of the poll, so nice cost saving measure for the city. Anything else? Okay. Any other council reports? Mr. Smith?
So I only have one other additional item, just a reminder that the school will be doing their groundbreaking on their initial bond project tomorrow at 1 o'clock on the old fairgrounds, basically. I think once if you go into the new parking area, you'll see where they're at. So if you'd like to attend, yeah, for the new softball kids. And that's all I have for tonight.
So you have on your goal setting for the.
Oh, I'm sorry, I did. I passed the sheet around.
Yeah.
So we forgot about that. So I highlighted in red on the report some of the different items we've been working on. Goal 1 to do a community vision. We've been doing some discussions with Sarah on some community leader interviews. That'll be the first step for them. They've done some background information, and we are working to form a steering committee. And I know Lily sent an email out to all of you trying to get back on track with our monthly meetings, and so I'll be talking to you about potential people and ideas that you might have in that way. Then we're working on our just an inventory of all the city fees, and now we're starting to compare them to different places, and we'll be coming to you probably early next year with any recommendations on any changes. Then under goal 3, as far as code enforcement, we have a full-time code enforcement officer. He's nearly done with training, and he's been helping evaluate some of the code-related ordinances. We brought one to you for change last meeting. And then the green property project is trying to help maybe increase our senior related housing options in the city. Those responses will be back on that at the end of October. We've had quite a few, probably 5 or 6 developers interested in that RFP, so hopeful that will move forward. Then tonight we took action on the South Hermiston Industrial Park, and so that project will move ahead full steam. And then some transportation related things will be, now that we've secured this grant from EDA, we'll be looking at how to potentially get some technical assistance funds to analyze the location of a bridge over the Utility River, where would be the best spot, type of thing, so that we can start long-term planning. I mean, that's not a project that's going to happen next year. It's probably a 10-year project. But we need to take the first steps. And then goal 6 on the court-related projects, we have selected a new software vendor for our court software. We'll be working on installation over the next few months and implementation. So that's moving forward. And then I think once that's in place and functioning well, we'll be able to have a little bit better conversation about the potential to bring back misdemeanors and how we can handle those cases.
Excellent. And if you guys haven't been by Funland Park,
that's right.
A lot of construction going on over there. Some of the implementation of the toys or the structures or the city crew have been working on that. And I would remind the city that it can be viewed online through our city website. There's a live action camera out there if you can watch the construction. So lots of interesting parts and pieces are coming together for fun. So
yeah.
Anything else, Mr.
That's it. Thank you.
Anything else, Council? All right. We are adjourned.